Hey, Catlin here with lesson 19 of your homework this week. Let's jump right in with the expanding and factoring problem. Number one, expand means you're going to distribute the number, multiply the outside by both inner parts of the group. Factor means you're going to reverse that and pull a number out that's a common factor, hence the word factor there. So let's do the first one here. And what I'll do is I'll set it up as one of our rectangles, okay? So we have negative 1/4 as the width, and then we have two rectangle lengths inside that are negative x, 8x, and 12y. So our job here is to multiply the negative 1/4 times the length of each rectangle to find the area of each, and then their sum will be our expanded version. So negative times a negative is positive, so we know this is going to be a positive x because the x is there and multiplied. We just got to find a fourth of 8. Well, that's just 8 divided by 4, which is positive 2. So when I multiply these two, I get 2 x's. And then when I multiply negative 1/4 of 12, y, we know we're going to have a y. We know it's going to be negative because the negative times a positive is negative. And 12 divided by 4, or 1/4 of 12, is 3. So we know that part A here is simply going to be 2x's minus 3y, or 2x plus a negative 3y, whichever way you prefer there. Okay, and the way that I got there was doing negative 1/4 times negative 8x minus, or in this case it was a plus, and the reason I got minus is because we got a negative answer, negative 1/4 times 12y. That's how I got there. I'm multiplying the negative 1/4 times both. Now in reverse, let's work that in reverse. Let's imagine that we had another rectangle for this next one. But this rectangle, we already know what the two areas are. We know that it's 36a and negative 16. So to be able to do this problem in reverse, we got to pick the numbers that go on the length and width. So we know the area, we have to find the length and width. This is probably the most challenging part, is picking the common factor. What number goes into 36 and 16? That's kind of the toughest part here. So in this particular problem, I'm going to choose the number 4 because I know that 4 will go into this, and I know that 4 will go into that. 4 goes into 16 4 times, and it goes into 36 9 times. So I'm going to choose the number 4 to put here as my common factor. And then you just got to ask yourself, what times 4 would give me the area here, and what times 4 would give me the area here? And that's going to be our two parts inside of our grouping. So the setup is going to look like this in algebra form. 4 times something. You can have a minus in between, and because the original had a minus in between, we just got to, I guess really we could think of this as a positive 16 if we're going to have the minus in between. 36 A's split up into 4 equal groups. Well, that would be 36 divided by 4, which is 9. So that means we'd have 9 A's when we divide those. And 16 split up into 4 groups would be simply 4. And so those are the numbers that I get from my question marks in my group, and this is the answer for part B. Okay, so part A is here, part B here. And there's the explanation. Let's move on. Let's factor the expression below. So let's set this one up if we were going to factor it. So the setup in our rectangle example, we've got 1, 2, 3 terms. So we need 3. Oops. Do that. We need 3 different sections. And we've got a negative 4xy. We've got a 12xz. And it's takeaways, so we'll make sure that our setup has that. And then a 20xw. So my setup is going to be something times the group minus and a plus. We'll have something that's a common factor out here, and then the in-betweens will be the multiplications there. So let's think of a number that goes into 4, 12, and 20. And the number that I'm going to choose there is 4. So I'm going to pull that number out. 4 goes into 4 once, goes into 12 3 times, and that 5 times. But if you look closer, there's more than just a number that goes into everything. There's also a common letter. X is in all of them. So I'm actually going to pull out a 4x. X is going to come out. So the X is going to go away, which just leaves me with a Y on this one. If the X is gone, this leaves me with a Z, and this one leaves me with a W. So I can go ahead and write those things down in my groupings. Now we just got to divide the number parts. Negative 4 divided by positive 4 is negative 1, or negative 1y, or negative y. And then 12 divided by 4 is 3. And 20 divided by 4 is 5. So we end up with this expression as our answer here. Number 3. This one's kind of already set up for us. What number would you pull out of 75A and 25B being added? Well, what number goes into both? There's no common letters, so 25 is a good choice, because 25 will go into itself once, and it will go into 75 3 times, which is why I would put 3 there, and 25 times itself would be B. All right, so let's move on to the next problem. We're going to set up a table for this one. Elena makes her favorite shade of purple paint by doing this mixture: 3 cups blue, 1.5 cup red, and 1/2 cup of white. Elena has 2/3 of a cup of white paint. Assuming she has enough red paint and blue paint, how much purple paint can she make? All right. She has 2/3 of a cup of white paint. I'm looking at that last part just to make sure it doesn't throw anything off. Okay, let's set up our table here. So our table is going to include blue. It's going to have some red. And it's going to have some white. And when all those things combine, it will make purple. So we're going to set up our table here. We know that the proportions that she needs to use is 3 to 1.5 red. I'm going to use 1.5 instead of 1.5. And then 1/2 a cup of white. This is what it's supposed to be, right? And then that's going to create some purple. Now, if she does that mixture, we can add these 3 numbers together. 2 plus 3 is 5. It would make 5 cups of purple, right? But this particular scenario, she's got a little bit more white, so she can increase these a little bit and make some more purple. So she's actually got 2/3 cup of white. And what we want to do is we want to find the relationship between these two. Well, we multiply to get from there to there. That way we can kind of go across all these other situations. So really we got to do 2/3 divided by 1/2, the 0.5. We'll find out what this multiplier is. Keep, change, flip. That is the same as 4/3. So we got a 4/3 multiplier. We need to multiply this times 4/3. This has got to get multiplied by 4/3. And technically this is getting multiplied by 4/3 too. How much purple? Actually, we don't have to do all these parts. We could just do, assuming she has enough red paint and blue paint, how much purple paint can she make? We can just do 5 times 4/3 to find part A. So A, we can do 5/1 times 4/3, and that would be 20/3. So that's part A. You could also answer 6 2/3 there if you wanted to. Part B, how much blue paint and red paint will she need to use with the 2? Okay, so we do need to find these 2 missing ones here. So this one was 20/3. We need to multiply 1.5, which is 3/2. This is the same as 3/2. Multiply by 4/3. That's 12/6, which is 2. So 2 cups of red. Red will equal 2. And then 4/3 times 3. So 3/1 times 4/3. That's 12/3, or just simply 4. So blue would be 4. And 4 plus 2 plus 2/3 is 20/3, or 6 2/3. Same thing. So it all matches up and equals. All right, let's move on to the last part. I'm just going to do a couple of these, and then you can do the rest on your own. I will do the fraction 2 at the beginning. That seems helpful. So Let's do part A. We're just solving equations. Negative 8th d minus 4 equals negative 3/8. There are no groupings, so we don't need to divide anything up here. We just need to get rid of the things that are surrounding our d, starting with this lone 4. And we're going to do that by adding 4 to the other side. Now, before I do that, I'm going to do some changes here. I'm going to change this, since everything is in eighths. To help myself, I'm going to convert 4 into something out of 8. And 8 times 4 is 32, so I'm going to use 32/8 when I rewrite this. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to add 32/8 to both sides to get rid of the takeaway 32/8. And what that'll leave me with when I add 32/8 to this is a positive 29/8. And then my last step will be to divide the total by the eighth that's here, and that will tell me what d is equal to. So to find this, I've got to do 29/8 divided by a negative 1/8, which is the same as 29, keep, change, flip. The eighths cancel, and we get negative 29. And that's the answer for part A. All right, I'll do B as well since it is a fraction. You guys can do the rest on your own. Negative 1/4, it'll be good practice. This might be the one that I checked too, so you probably want to do these. Add 5 is the opposite by taking 5 away. There's no groups here, so we just need to get the 5 out of the way. So we're going to find out what the quarter m is equal to by taking 5 away from the total, which makes 11. And to get rid of the negative 1/4 that's being multiplied by our m, we're going to do 11 over 1 divided by negative 1/4. So we're going to do keep, change, flip, and we're going to get negative 44 over 1. When we multiply, 11 times negative 4 is negative over 1, or negative 44. And that is enough help, I think. The rest of those you can do on your own. The last two, you want to divide by the 8 and the 3.2 first because you get these groupings. So that's a little helpful tip for you there. But that finishes up our homework, page 2.